Good morning, and it's Motivational Monday here on the Step by Step Listening page. I'm Cheryl Andrews. I'm the founder of Step by Step Listening and author of the book Manage Your Critic: From Overwhelm to Clarity in 7 Steps. So welcome. Today's subject is all about why do we fear change? And I want to talk about why do we fear it? What do I mean by fear? What do I mean by change, first of all? And then what can we do about it? And perhaps look at some of the stumbling blocks, why people avoid doing the things that we can do to change things and set you up for success for this week. So if you come online, please just say hello, that'd be great. So why do we fear change? Let's look at fear, first of all. Often fear is a feeling, a sensation that we get in our body. And so the first thing I want you to be curious about is when you get fear, please do share it in the box in the comments, if not live now, but later on when you're watching the replay. You know, whereabouts is that fear? Does that have a shape or size? And for you, think about, where does the fear come from? Because each one of us will be different, and as we share our stories and we share how it works for us, that's how we can get more clarity, get more insight. And also think about change. What kind of change is that change? Because the irony of it all is that the brain is almost in a battle at all times, because the brain wants you to grow. If you think from the day you're born to the day you die, we are constantly physically changing. Okay, our body, our cellular levels, our environment around us is evolving. We're changing through the seasons of the year. We go through winter, summer, spring, autumn. As our families grow, people born, new members of the family are born, people pass away. Things are changing, constantly changing in our environment. So the human conditioning is set up for growth, for change. And yet we have a fear of it, or we resist it, or we become uncomfortable with it. So I want to talk more about why that happens. And please do share your fears if you've got them, or anything, your metaphor for fear, that's like what, and we can actually start to explore that together on the call today. But the main reason why this is happening is that the body and the brain wants to grow, it wants to learn. And at the same time, it wants to keep you safe. So what happens is the brain starts to, it's a pattern spotting mechanism, so it starts to predict. So if it sees this and you have a past experience that says that caused you upset, or it hurt you, or you didn't, it left you in any kind of emotional upset, or just, it will kind of predict that this particular thing is going to cause the same. So you can almost like relive it before you've even experienced it. So this is why we work on the what's working muscle. It's also why we model out what's happening, so we can look at the individual process as to what's happening for you when this is all going on, because then you can find out all the little steps. And nearly always the brain is kind of predicting what's going to happen in order to protect you, but the downside is its memory recall process isn't necessarily accurate. So one of the stories I talk about in the book is a young girl I worked with, when she was 19 at university, and during the winter months, she was finding it difficult to stay for the last classes at the end of the day, because it meant coming home in the dark, and she had a fear of the dark. But when we actually started looking at that fear and where did that fear come from, she was about 5 years old when she was told, you shouldn't go out in the dark. So now, as an adult, was that true? And that's what we have to check in. And she still didn't like being out in the dark. So the next solution, next thing we had to look at was she could ask a colleague or a friend, to walk with her to the car park. She drove, so that was so she'd get herself home. But then she had a fear or a belief that from when she was at school, that asking for help made you look weak or vulnerable, and she'd experienced being bullied, and so again she wasn't asking for help. When we readdressed that as an adult, she realized that she was happy to change that belief. That was something that she was okay to do, and so she asked for some help and got a colleague to walk with her to the car, which meant she stayed at college, which meant she got a degree and went on to be a successful business owner. So that is a good example of a past experience that's out of kilter with where you are currently now in the age and the wisdom you have now, but the brain is using old data. And a good example is when we don't always change them, you're the one that's in control. You choose whether to change it or not. So how do you overcome that is through the planning process. And I hear lots of people go, oh, planning's a waste of time, because you create all these plans, you get all these details down, and then you spend all that time planning, and then it doesn't actually happen. And it's like, then you relive that, then there's a disappointment, and so you decide the planning's no good for you. But that's where planning is often not the right thing. The point behind planning is that you're setting an expectation for your brain. You're helping it to understand what is coming. It gives it something to look forward to. And by mapping it out and breaking it down, it understands that you're not really going from, so if you want to increase your income, if you want to reduce your hours, whatever it is, from where you are now to where you want to be can seem like a massive gap. Whereas if you chunk it down into a detailed plan, your brain starts to go, oh yeah, that's okay, you'll be fine, you'll be safe. So you go from, this is what I want, big picture, this is what I want in the next 90 days, 30 days, next 7 days, what do I need to do today? So that's one of the things I want to leave you with today, is I want you to, if you're happy to share, we've got 2 people live, thinking about 2018, what would you like to have happen? If this year was just the way you'd like it to be, it would be like what? And if you, once you've got that one, then you need to think about if the next 90 days are just the way you'd like it to be, that would be like what? And 30 days, for that 90 days to be like that and that year to be like that, what needs to happen in the next 30 days? And given all that, what needs to happen in the next 7 days? What's the one thing you have to do every day for the next 7 days that's going to allow that to happen? And the reason I want to bring this to the call today is when I was working with my coach last night, that was ultimately what I realized I've done. I've got some big picture plans. I've got some quarterly plans. I know what I'm aiming for, but what I was not doing regularly enough is a daily plan. So, okay, given that in the next 7 days I want to do this, what's the one thing that I have to, what's my priority for tomorrow? What's the thing I need to focus on? What's the one thing that I need to do as a priority? Because I always forget, my to-do list is massive today. And there's no way I can physically fit it all in. And I could feel the fear building up because the body was like, oh, you're not going to be able to get that all done today. So then I have to look, okay, what's my priority? This is what I'm going to focus on. And then I'll work out when I can do the other things. So another tool that I use with my clients is the wealth dynamics, those who haven't come across it. So here's a wealth dynamics grid. So we're all, as a human being, able to do all of these, and we all do it all of the time. We have the dynamo energy who are really good at big picture thinking. They tend to ask the question, what can we do? What can we do to solve that? What you could do? So if you're telling them a problem, they'll go, well, what you could do is this and what you need to do is that. So they'll use the what question a lot. Blaze energy tend to be people who ask the who question. Who's it going to impact? Who do we need to do it? Who do I need to be? The tempo energy tend to ask when and where. When's that going to happen? They're much more about the timing of things. They're very much in the moment. So if you ask a tempo energy, what do you want to have happen this year? My husband's a tempo energy. If I ask him for the next year, he's like, I don't know, because his ability isn't naturally to visualize. But right here, right now, you get down into detail. So if we know that we want to get a car, which we're looking at doing this year, get a new car, he's the one that'll get into all the minute detail. He'll start doing the research. He's quite happy. He's on the accumulator energy, so he'll go into his Lord energy. He'll start analyzing, creating spreadsheets, working out which is the best car for us. Which one ticks all the boxes. And then you've got the steel energy that want to work out how to do it. And then the middle one, we've got the water, the spirit energy is the why. And often when we create plans, what happens is we're having our natural default and we don't cover all of the aspects of it. So I need to think about, in order to avoid change, you'll be thinking about what would you like to have happen. And the corner, star energy are really good at putting the attention on and putting the spotlight on what works and who works, and showing the success. They're great salespeople. So you looking at this is what I want to have happen. If you look at what has worked under your star energy, and then think about who in the blaze energy, who do I need to be, or even who do I need to support me? Who else would I need? What kind of support might I need in order to make this happen? And if you've had those conversations with yourself, if you've written them down or you've worked in partnership with people and you've got that, you're updating your brain that you know exactly what you want, you know what's worked in the past, you know who you need to be, so what attitudes or attributes you need to be. So I knew that in order for today to be successful, even though I've got a massive to-do list, is I needed to be calm and grounded. So I've done my meditation, I've done my journaling, I've got myself in that place where I'm ready to receive and get on with the work that I can do and trust that I'm going to choose the right things to prioritize on. Deal maker here is the peacekeeper. So it's also thinking about, what do you need in order to manage your time and manage your people effectively. The question the tempo would be asking is when and where. Often, if you've got really big plans, the dynamo energy can get really good overview of plans, but they often overestimate what they can get done. And they don't look at how long it's going to take or when it's going to get done. So they don't get into that detail of it. So your plans may not work because you don't break it down into the detail. And it's great to work with people who love the detail because you can delegate it, but you still need to have a respect for it. You still need to honor and recognize your physical body. Your system needs to know when and where. And if it knows when it's going to get done, often that can be a massive relief. I've got a number of creators I'm working with at the moment who get clients saying, can you do this? And they forget to say, when do you need it by? And that simple change of question means that their brain stops going to overload and panic because things are now all changing, because they can start to predict when they're going to do it and how they're going to manage their time. And still energy ask how. So again, you might be, some people get really stuck in how am I going to do that, how am I going to do it, before they've got clarity of what it is they want. And the one that many of us, and I'm guilty of doing this as well, is tuning into the why. And Mark and I were out looking at cars yesterday. We went out and the car was a bit higher than we expected to pay budget-wise. And we really started to question, why did we want a new car? What was it that was really important about it? And did it matter whether it was a brand new car or was it a second-hand car? And actually, when we tuned into the why were we getting a new car? You know, what were the most important things about it? Was it a status thing? Did we want it? Because we know if we buy a brand new car, as soon as you drive it off the forecourt, it will be lose its value. But I've never owned a brand new car, and I was curious about it. But when we drilled down to it, we're like, I'm not sure that a brand new car is really what we want. We're still working on it, but you have to look at why are you doing things? Why is it important to you? Because that's where your emotional drivers will come in. And when you invest time in your planning to think about what do you want, what's worked before, the accumulator on the opposite energy was also what could go wrong. So working with Steve Judge, who's working with Karen and I to write his book currently, one of the things he talked about in the chapter I was reading recently and talking to him about his plan of his book, that when he does his workshops, he says, right, what could go wrong? And many of us, I tend to stay up in that high sort of what's working. I'm very sort of happy, clappy, very positive, like to be very positive thinking. And I don't like to ask the question, what could go wrong? But what I've realized is that when we've got a fear of change, if we haven't preempted what could go wrong, so if you think, well, what could go wrong with this car? So Mark and I went down, you know, we could get this, we could invest this money and this could happen, this could happen. Then if you've already spoken to yourself about what could go wrong, when it goes wrong, if it does go wrong, you're not going to go into fear or, you know, you're not fight or flight. You're not going to have a critic having a field day because you already have preempted it. The brain already knew that that was a potential that could happen and you have a strategy. It's why people like the emergency services, they go out and practice and practice and practice and practice, putting the sirens on, putting the lights on under an emergency. They talk through what's happening, what they're anticipating, what they're thinking. They're programming their brain to anticipate what might actually happen in order to overcome fear of change or, you know, a change in circumstances. So I'm just wondering, there's one person on live now. I'm coming up to the quarter past mark anyway. I want to know, what I'd love to know from you is, if you want to know more, I'll put some links how you can get hold of the Wealth Dynamics report if you haven't already done it. If you are already had your evaluation done in Wealth Dynamics, you know what your strengths are, then put down below, what is your strength? You know, what's your profile? I'm a supporter, I'm on the Blaze Energy. So put what your profile is, but also think now that you know that about your profile, what is it that you could do differently in order to set yourself up for success? What could you do in terms of your planning, your thinking, to actually consider what you're going to do? Those of you who want to share your goals for 2018, please do. I'd love to know what they are. And also, what have you learned from today's video? Actually, that's loads of questions, isn't it? So I'm a bit curious this morning, probably because I've got a long to-do list. Can you hear how much faster I'm talking, how much more I've got going on? So maybe I do need to do a bit more meditation, a bit more grounding when I finish today. So I'm just going to take a deep breath. What I'd like to have happen is to hear what you know now as a result of the video. Please share your learnings, and I will put some links and some questions in the box as well. Have a fantastic week. I will see you again on the page on What's Working Wednesday, and we'll discover more things that we can develop our muscles so our critic doesn't get stressed and we don't stop creating the life that we really want. Have a great week. Bye.